this is Tiger. Welcome to my stream. AJ, thank you, good evening. Have a good stream, she says. Thank you so much. And yeah, today we are using a new stream setup, only one screen, since I found out that the second screen is actually limiting my frame rate in the game. So, new idea how to approach this, only one screen, and I'm reading the chat on my phone that hopefully does not turn off. And what are we going to do? Last night we looked into the Riviera line in Trainsets 6. Today we are looking into the Bahnstrecke Leipzig Dresden, the mega route that we have since yesterday. Early access release. And let's just hop into it. How do I turn on my markers? Obviously I need my OBS back. First a disclaimer, I got the DLC keys and the game keys for free from DTG for being an ambassador, but don't worry, what I'm telling you is my unfiltered opinion anyway. We're going to Dresden, Bahnstrecke Leipzig Dresden, and we are doing unboxing. Theodoros, hello Tiger and all, so nice to see you on my phone, on the chat. Maybe a bit more friendly time-wise for you. What do we have in Bahnstrecke Leipzig Dresden? We get the ICE T 411, we get the Talent 2 442, and we get the Trucks 2 locomotives, the one for the passenger trains, the 146.2, a Trucks 2 locomotive, and the 185.2 for the freight trains, and the other locomotives are layering in from other DLCs. I think we should probably start with a scenario on the ICE T, not the basics. Here. Going through a different route from Riesa to Dresden than what we are usually doing with the ICET. Friday night stream, yes. I'm actually doing a 3-day in a row special for unboxing Trainsets 6. Yesterday we had the Riviera line, a very, very beautiful route with very nice trains, with a bit weird train faults as it is at the moment, but nevertheless I enjoyed it a lot driving it. Now we're going to Germany and the huge Dresden route, and while the game is loading in, I might actually use the time to... Oh, did I kick it out again? No, this is this weird behavior that the game... So, hello driver, today you'll be driving the ICE service, missing the normally scheduled Dresden-Neustadt and being routed through Friedrichstadt to miss the closed lines. So we have closed lines apparently. This is why we are going on a line that usually is not for our ICE services, because it is slower. Neigetechnik, no VB gesperrt, Neigetechnik we have. And we should unlock the doors. Did we not do that already? Oh, I opened it on the wrong side. That is obviously what happens if you think you can play it out of the top of your head. So, nothing happened. Passengers can board now on the correct side of the train. And we are here at Riesa, what we already know from the old Dresden DLC. But before we start, what I wanted to demonstrate is why this is an alternate route that we are going here and how it is an alternate route, and for that I bring on the presentation that you already know from the previous stream for Trainsim World 6. This is the part of Germany that we're running around the southern part of the so-called Neue Bundesländer, the eastern part, formerly German Democratic Republic, with bordering to Czechia and Leipzig Dresden. Old Dresden DLC is this, Dresden Riesa, and it had this avoiding line. So this rightmost line is the high-speed line for the ICE traffic, and we are actually going along the slower line because the high-speed line apparently is closed. The branches to Großenhain, to Meißen-Friedrichstadt, and that little stop to Raudebeul. This is the other line, not in the Dresden DLC, but that was released earlier, Tarante Rampe, and obviously also Rapid Transit, Dessau-Markkleeberg, and this is now all the glory of Leipzig Dresden from Leipzig, running this high-speed part with LZB up to 200 kilometers per hour, and then from Riesa, where we are already, to Dresden. And nice enough, we are going also through Friedrichstadt, what is this new connecting line. So we will doing a lot of stuff that we usually don't do with ICE trains. And yeah, that's what we're going to do now. Apply some power and get moving. Set the IFB first to 40 because of the starting program.
Sehr geehrte Reisende, herzlich willkommen im Zug ICE 1651 nach Dresden Hauptbahnhof. Wir wünschen Ihnen eine angenehme Reise. Nächste Station Dresden Hauptbahnhof. Ausstieg in Fahrtrichtung links.
Alright, so this was the announcement, and what is new is that the ICET spawns with the brakes full on. The older version of the ICE trains typically spawned with the brakes already released. So we have to get used to it, and now we can actually apply some power and start our train. Let's have the FPS counter running, and we are at around 40 to 45. What is higher? And Theodorus says finally IC train can stretch their legs in the route, in this route. Yes, true. They can stretch their legs. Nevertheless, what it still doesn't do is the alternate flashing, the Wechselblinken between the 70 and the 85 indicator for the start program and the restricted monitoring. They still don't do that. I don't know why they can't finally fix that. People have been asking this forever to be fixed, because you never know, are you in a restricted monitoring or not. With the starting program, you can assume that you are in a restricted monitoring, but when you're actually in a real restricted monitoring, then you never know when it ends, and don't know whether you are limited to 20 or to 40 kilometers per hour, respectively to 40 or 80 if it is not a 500 hertz. So, are we already catching the first drops of rain? Seems like it. Well then, let's have the wipers. Get ready for a couple of stutters. Haven't played the route that often, because it actually takes some time to run it the whole way from Leipzig to Dresden, and the other way around. Passing the Niederau branch. That is actually here. Next landmark is the chemistry works, where in the original DLC there was a lot of shunting with the V60. That is still there probably. Now you can also use the V90, the deluxe locomotive. But first we have to open the main circuit breaker. And then run a bit until we can close it again. Train's about 200 meters long. And the pantograph is somewhere along the train. Yeah, I am figuring that it will be rather silent in the chat, since we're competing again with an official stream by DTG. They will start a bit later, but anyway. My contribution to the Railway 200 event and the Dovetail Trains in World 6 release stream event will be on Sunday at 1800 British Summer Time. If I assume the time zone correctly, that will be then 7 in the evening here in Central Europe, respectively 1700 UTC on Sunday. If you want to check out what I did with the Talent 2, running exactly this new part via Friedrichstadt from Coswig to Dresden and recapping the HL signals a bit. The HL signals that make this route and other Eastern German routes unique. And I find them extremely beautiful. And they make a lot of sense. So if you're playing SimRail, for example, then it's the same system. Theodoros RC, with this route now you can go 200 kilometers through these local stations. ASRTO, hello there. Yes, you're just right on cue when we were mentioning SimRail and the Polish signals that follow the same system that the German HL signals follow. According to a Russian standard that was used in many Eastern European countries and still is. In Eastern Germany there's overlaid with KS signals, so that we have a constant change between KS and HL. And some rare semaphore HV signals are also around. Did I hear Simrail? More like Soviet, I guess. Well, that is probably correct to say so, yeah. It is definitely from Soviet times. I've heard this release been kinda buggy. Yeah. On Steam, I think you can play it rather well. Some things are not as they are supposed to be, but this is within reason, I should say. The new stuff like the train faults and the TSRs, the temporary speed restrictions, work more or less, but yeah, they are obviously a bit bugged. Sometimes the signs spawn in the wrong sequence, sometimes they don't spawn at all. As we have seen yesterday on the Riviera line, you only get the warning board. In the German TSRs you don't get the lamps for the LF1 sign. Arrows are missing if the temporary speed restrictions are going across switches. You don't get a repeater sign if for whatever reason there is a stop between the warning sign and the temporary speed restriction. There are some bugs I've read that make me wonder if anyone tested it. That's always the thing. I can assure you they are testing a lot, but sometimes it is really true. You think those are things that really jump into your eye when you're running the route for the first time, and then there are always things that just appear after fixing something else. So this is beyond testing then already, right? But some bugs like San Bernardino line releasing with cars that just ignore railway crossings and they haven't fixed it. That is true. This is an old bug that can be witnessed on many routes. Like also here in Dresden, you sometimes you have those bugs when you're running across a bridge and the light goes out for a second, just as if you are passing through the bridge, right, underneath, but you're actually passing over it, and this is a weird thing that I realized is still there. Some signaling bugs are still there. Like when starting from Dresden, you sometimes get repeaters of distant signals that you never got before. But as huge as the game has become, it is an almost impossible task to make everything work, especially with so many DLCs on the market, so many different platforms. And you're right, the overhead line equipment is sometimes missing. At least the model is missing. Or is floating in the air. Or not connecting. Or grass sitting on the overhead line equipment. You can't deny that those things are actually happening. And it actually is an old saying that Dovetail never fixes the old bugs. What is kinda true. Sometimes they fix some bugs, but many bugs are, yeah, in the game, or have been in the game for years, and they are probably not getting touched. Like here on the ICE trains, the missing alternate flashing between 70 and 85 in the restricted monitoring. That is something that is extremely safety critical, but it only affects people who are running the trains with safety systems on and with a HUD off, and this portion of players is not so super big. Yeah, nothing can be bug free, says ASRTU, but some of the major bugs shouldn't have appeared to begin with. This is something that I agree with strongly, that some things should never have appeared in the game. And when you hear the beta testers talk that only the most game-breaking bugs are fixed when the game is in the stage of beta testing, then you wonder why the game is not in a better state when it gets to beta testing, right? But difficult. I wouldn't know where to begin with. It's a big portion, as the minimal HUD from Train Simulator 4 doesn't include the PZB indicator. Yeah, the PZB indicator, okay. I would want the PZB indicator in the train telling me what happens. But if you're playing on a smaller screen, then maybe you can't really see that. Theodoros, does the HUD got any change? Not that I know of, but you know that I'm always very reluctant to use the HUD in the first place, so I wouldn't know. I have not read any release routes, and I've heard as RTU, this route has got a bunch of signaling issues. Yes, I have not heard it yet, but I have encountered some, and there are even now some issues that weren't around in the Nahverkehr Dresden. How bad it is or how good it is, we will see. In their defense, this route is a really big chunk of route with a lot of big yards and many paths that need to be dispatched. So it probably takes forever to test all the possible paths that there are in the game. And Theodoros, hey, I was tricking you into turning it on. Didn't. And I don't have, I'm not running the minimal HUD. I'm actually running the normal old-fashioned HUD, but I turned it off. But if you want to see it, it is still here, see? It lives. But I don't want to see it, I want to see my train. And this is a thing that is not so great in my opinion about the train faults, because the train faults should not occur that often as they occur, that is one thing, but they also should be indicated by the indicators on the train and not by some message popping up. So this is no competition for the fault simulation on the expert locomotives, in my opinion. It's nice that they are exploring ways of that kind. But it is, as it is at the moment, way too arcadey for me. Störung, yes, that You can hear that still. Störung, Störung. But not with the train faults here, I guess. Because the ICE trains do not simulate faults as it is. On this line, from what I've read, only the Talent 2 does that. We're probably getting more shader creating stutters now, because this is about how far I drove this line before. And some of the trains included in the base routes not getting train faults on release is kinda off-putting, he says. Yeah. Well, I think they were meant to get train faults throughout all the trains that live in the route. But they probably just couldn't do it, so it is limited to a couple of trains. Can't they do shader pre-caching or loading screens? Maybe they can. They are talking about installing some shader creating scenarios. But what you can always do is like board a train and then sit there, switch to the external camera and let the AI do the shader creating run. Here there was 2025 gaming be like compiling shader. Yeah. The good thing is that it, or if it actually runs after the shaders have been compiled. Sometimes I'm not entirely sure whether the stuttering is creating the shaders or whatever. But the idea with boarding a train and having the internal camera on and then let the train run the whole line is kinda clever, I think. But shader pre-caching is better, it's nothing new, it's just caches all the shaders on the loading screen in one go. It's not that long and it's just does it at once. Alright, I have to take your word for that this actually works. And I got a penalty break because I did not acknowledge the flashing yellow light on the last signal. For reading the chat. Well, at least we know that. Now proceed as indicate. Okay, that's what we are going to do. Why did I get a Zwangsbremsung? I can show you. Because when entering Coswig, we got... Well, now the signal has changed anyway. There's no point. But on this HL signal, when we entered, we had a flashing yellow on top and a steady yellow with a yellow ribbon in the lower part. The lower part was telling us to stay below 60. And the flashing yellow on top was telling us to expect the same steady yellow with the yellow ribbon on the next signal. And this should have been acknowledged by pressing the TSW acknowledge key. Simrel R signal jetzt. And why I did get my Zwangsbremsung now is because I was going beyond the 40 for the started program probably, since it was not doing the Wechselblinken, right? The alternating flashing. So, Zwangsbremsungen are still working on this train in Train World 6, so much is for sure. And I should maybe set the AFB to 40 until we are out of the starting program here again. Then we can actually proceed. So reading the chat on my phone is almost to the same degree distracting than it is on my second screen. And this always proves that drivers should not read things on their phone when they are driving the trains. Here you can see we have the 60 on the next signal. Top one is probably not flashing green, telling us that the next signal is actually clear. Clear insofar as that it does not impose a speed limit. But it still can announce a speed limit. So, and now we're going the new line towards Friedrichstadt. Line speed is still 60. Here is again a flashing yellow on top, announcing a slow signal. This time I was not distracted and did what I was supposed to do, and we got our 1000 Hertz monitoring. Theodoros War, another ICE in this part of town. What actually happened to the fast bypass line? Yeah, I think it is just closed for whatever reason. Maybe an ICE broke down and somebody has to rescue the passengers with the Expert 101 locomotive. That is unfortunately not yet in the game. There is no layer for the Expert locomotive. But it is supposed to get a layer for the 101 Expert locomotive with the release of the Expert 145, from what I have heard. But whether this is actually happening like this, I don't know. So, what does this line have in terms of line speed? Still 60. Is that because we have not switched over completely? Or because this part is still... No, it was because we had not switched over completely. This is a 100 line. So we can accelerate a bit. Weren't you an Epic Games player? You are totally right. And I had to switch to Steam for now, because many DLCs don't carry over on the Epic Games Store at the time being. They are working on it so that all the old DLCs will carry over eventually on the Epic Games Store. But since only a couple of them are carrying over right now for the release, I had to switch to Steam. I'm still hopeful that they will manage to get the full range of DLCs back on the Epic Games Store under Train World 6 and on. But until that happens and I can switch back to the Epic Games Store, I will have to stay on Steam. Another thing that shouldn't have happened, to be fair, totally. This is actually a thing that should never have happened. It is only, well, partially DTG's problem, because apparently it is... Well, this is a problem with the way that the Epic Game Store works, where every new version of a game is treated as a completely new title, so that entitlements to prior DLCs need to be converted into entitlements for DLCs for the new version of the game, and I don't know who imposed the limit there, whether it was always there in the Epic Game Store or whether the Epic Game Store people lost their patience with it and didn't want to transfer that many entitlements. At any rate, they limited it to 60, and not even 60 at release, but a limited number. And in October you should get the rest of the remaining 60. And we don't even know why it happened. We don't really know why it happened, yeah. It must be something within the way that the Epic Game Store handles different game versions and DLCs for it. What exactly is speculation? We have two videos at least by Paul, the train simulator driver from Australia. If he has better intel than I have about what actually the reason is, then it has to do with the fact that in the Epic Game Store every new version of the game is treated as a new title, so that the DLC always stick with the old version if they are not transferred manually. But to be fair, if this has always been a problem, then maybe this is something that you should tell people who are investing their money in the Epic Game Store. And Theodorus says, Epic Game Store be like, I'm a businessman doing business. True. And with my people have to spend a lot of hours transferring entitlements by hand. And I'm not earning anything from that. ASRTU, I'd say the maximum number of DLCs Theo has a big flaw, which is why then did some DLC get delayed. Yeah, the maximum DLC number theory is, I think, more a thing that is a subject of what DTG and the Epic Game Store can agree on. So how many DLCs the Epic Game Store people are willing to transfer. So is there a limit incoming, or was that only for the... No, here's my LF6. Slowing us to 90. But what makes a lot of sense to me is that actually without extra work on Epic's side, not a single DLC would transfer from Train Sim World 5 to Train Sim World 6, because they would all stick with the game that they were made for and not be considered a DLC to the new version anyway. And now DTG has to bleed their way through the Epic Game Store so that they transfer all the remaining DLCs. Theodorus, meanwhile, Train Sim Classic got like 780 DLCs on stream. Yeah, that is amazing. 780 DLCs. But with Train Sim World Classic, we don't really have to bother that they are getting a new version soon. A flashing yellow again. This time acknowledged. No Zwangsbremsung. Okay, yard, and in the yard my frame rate drops almost infinitely until the game freezes. Here's another LF6. That also reduces the line speed to 60. Friedrichstadt Yard. This is actually something that I do not know whether this has to be or has to do with shader creation or whether this is just the yard. Sometimes the frame rates just flip around wildly between 5 and 50. This is actually Friedrichstadt station here. We're not stopping, we're just passing. And then going back onto the line that we know from the old DC already. Esatio Tigerway is on his way to make a new SimRail PowerPoint presentation because the upcoming Lodge 2 DLC has check snows 5 semaphores in total in the western side of Ziarash. And it got me again while I was reading the chat. I should do what some colleagues do and have a counter for the Zwangsbremsungen. If I am running a route that I don't know so well that I know where the signals are, I should not read the chat. So my train, come out of it. With DTG busy with Trains in World Classic feels like left to dust, yeah. But to be fair, there's a silver lining on that, and ASRTO DTG is also busy in that one game that they haven't revealed yet. Possibly. Here's the repeater for the expect 60 signal that I did not acknowledge. Acknowledging the repeater now does not make things better, but nevertheless it needs to be acknowledged. Okay, I could not release from the starting program, and it was still restrictive. Those are the things why you need the Wechselblink for, so that you know that you are still in the restrictive one. I think I had never that many Zwangsbremsungen before in any stream. Another one, yeah. But if you get one Zwangsbremsung, you start again, then you are in the starting program. You can only see that the 85 is flashing, but you can't see whether you are in restricted and can only go 40, or whether you are already out of the restricted and can go 80. So unfortunately CD Radar is not here, but he could mark this as my run with the most Zwangsbremsungen ever. I have to find a different place for my phone maybe, because reading the chat on the phone distracts me even more than reading the chat on the other screen. So this is still something that can be done better, I guess. But now the 85 is not flashing anymore, I should be safe to go beyond the 40. And this time we are acknowledging the KS2 properly. And if we're not going beyond the 60, then we won't get a Zwangsbremse.
Station Dresden, Hauptbahnhof, Ausstieg in Fahrtrichtung links.
Alright. What game that DTG has not revealed yet? The fishing game? No, I don't think they said anything about the fishing game. And what exactly ASRTU is talking about, he has to tell us himself. Because whatever I would know about this would be highly NDA'd. So, now the game that they said they were gonna announce in the DTG Direct and they did not. Neigetechnik. Okay. He said Neigetechnik a lot, didn't he? Set the brakes to full application. Set the reverser to off, we can do that. Neigetechnik. Neigetechnik, ich verneige mich vor dem Zug. And step out from your train. For a moment I read step out in the rain. Well, there is not even any rain here at the station. So how did we do? Well, complete your first scenario. Alright, this got me an achievement in Steam. Yeah, what is really relieving is that I was able to transfer my player profile from Epic Games to my Steam installation. And that was the scenario on the ICET. One thing that I have to admit, I have no clue how this is done, is how you uncouple the second train set on the services starting at Leipzig. I remember that this was already a problem. Ronny! Oh, more German stuff. Guten Abend, Sam. Yeah, maybe you can tell us how to do that. If you're starting a service on the ICET 411, starting at Leipzig, running to Dresden. The first thing that we have to do is to uncouple the second train set. And I know there is a button you to do it via the MFD if they've done it correctly. Okay. I doubt that there is something like this on my MFD. So this multifunction display has probably this function not, or it doesn't have it. Okay. Garmin says ISRTO. Video speichern. Ronny, System entkuppeln. Riesa M. Checken, ob Federspeicherbremse angelegt und der Zug eine Vollbremsung ausführt und dann entkuppeln. So you say it should actually be here in System. Well, I'm afraid it is not. It is not here. We can go into Abfertigen. We can go into Fahren und Bremsen. We can go into AFB, obviously, but we cannot go into System. Great start. So, what we are actually supposed to do is to uncouple seven vehicles. What is the rear train set? And I remember that I had the same problem when we were at Chatham at Dovetail Games, and I thought maybe this is something that is gonna be fixed when the game is released, but apparently it hasn't. Well, the backup of course would be the button on the right on your Führerpult. Yeah, that one I found. And would I do this in the front cap, or would I do this in the cap where I actually want to uncouple at the side? Like, I know that here is a button that says Lokales entkuppeln, so I would have understood that is this end of the train that we would actually decouple in the one you want to uncouple, if I remember correctly. Yes. Do I have to hold this for a certain amount of time? Because just pressing it, releasing it, does not do the trick. Can't go into system here either. Five seconds at least. Is the Federspeicher on? No, the Federspeicher is not on. Would I apply the Federspeicher on the other train? Did you hear the passenger ambience? Someone sneezed. Or would I apply it on the train that I am sitting on at the moment? For sure, both units. Okay. Now the Federspeicher is going to be applied. Is applied now. Does this apply the parking brake for both units as long as they are coupled? Or do I have to go to the other cab to do it there as well? Well, let's check it out. Ronny can tell us maybe how it is supposed to be, but he cannot tell us how it is actually in the game. Try taking over the first unit, pressing Federspeicher, and then try to uncouple from the second unit. Alright. It should apply both units. This would only work from the front in real life. Alright. So I should have applied the Federspeicher. Yeah, I can already see that this unit has the Federspeicher applied as well. Okay, and then... Still doesn't uncouple. Can try from the other train. Should apply both in... Yeah. See if I can uncouple from this unit here. Nope. Let me get out. The 411 Z02. So now he can tell us how it is really supposed to work. You can still try it from the leading cap. If that does anything for me. Maybe the game wants you to have an activated cap for the one you want to decouple. So I would activate this cap by setting the reverser to somewhere.
Störung, Störung.
Now I heard something. But that was passenger ambience. It says gekuppelt. Coupling control only opens the hatch, but doesn't do anything because it is apparently already open. Open rear coupler hatch. Don't know if that even works. Will probably not do a lot for us. If we open the rear coupler hatch. But it actually works, see? Don't know how to close it again. Theodoros, call DTG support, Tiger. I don't think Siemens quality control. The units DTG produces. No, probably not. So I don't know if this is on the list of known issues. It probably is, because people always stumble across that. And so far I have not met anyone who told me how this is supposed to work. Now we have 2 activated cabs.
Störung, Störung.
Yeah, so much I understand. Störung. Interesting here, the gekuppelt Licht is not on, not even on. All the Riesas that are the reverses, right? Richtungsfahrschalter into 0. Federspeicher on. Then head to a cab in the middle and press Localis uncouple for 10 seconds at least. Vollbremsung applied. Okay. I have to decode this train driver lingo. Riesas are the reverses, I guess. Richtungswahlschalter VB. Vollbremsung. And Federspeicher on. So this reverser is in off. Full application here. Apply parking brake in case it has not been applied. No, it is. And let's go back to the cabs in the middle. If those trains weren't so long. Reverser, full application, parking brake applied. Alright. Second cab in the middle. Reverser, full application, parking brake applied. The rear cab should be in that state, but let's check it for making things properly. Here in the station area, the frame rate is much better than on the outside. Maybe for the baked light. That cab door you left open is just inviting danger if I'm on board. Yes, I wouldn't do that in real life. Good thing is that our passengers have a built-in do not do any nonsense routine. Except for standing on the tracks and reverser to 0. Full Bremsung. Parking brake. Oh, that another arrived. Alright, and now from 1 in the middle for at least 10 seconds. That would be so great if that worked. If there is a yellow light, do you slow down? Says Mr. Scoofy. Depends on the yellow light. Oops. I restocked the first aid kit by mistake. Is that a federal offense over there? Pretty sure PZB would stop me anyway. Well, it is a federal offense. So, as Ronny said, 10 seconds at least. Oh! Mr. Scoofy says he's trying to figure this game out. I'm trying to figure out how to uncouple, but it does not uncouple. And to answer your question properly, it totally depends on what kind of signal it is with a yellow light. In general, slowing down makes sense. Sometimes you even have to stop at the yellow light. Sometimes you can just go on with a limited speed typically. There are masses of videos on my YouTube channel what to do with a yellow light in the different signaling systems that there are. How do you accidentally restock a first aid kit? Well, having the supplies, unlimited supplies on you and then running into it while you're reading the chat. I usually have a yellow light, but then the next light just turned red, so slowing down was pointless. Well, it depends on your signaling system. Sometimes you know from the yellow light how much distance there is left for you to slow down for the red one. Sometimes you need to have route knowledge for that. So slowing down especially makes sense after you passed an AWS magnet or approach the next signal. So, Ronny, thank you so much for your help, but I'm afraid I cannot do this. Not even with your professional instructions. Those trains stay coupled. Yeah, but Mr. Scoopy, normally the lights don't turn red in approach. You should at least get a warning before you approach a red light, unless in an emergency. Let's listen to some announcements, should we not? Let's take an early train from Dresden out to Großenhain. Yeah, that's odd. Shouldn't be that way, says Ronny. Theodoros, in some parts of my city, people consider yellow lights as go quickly before it's red. Yeah, that's also some kind of philosophy. Talent 2. Master key. Reverser. Well, I don't need the reverser here before I open the doors, but nevertheless. Let's open the doors. Let's set those switches that are not necessarily working like this in real life. Here it is turning on PZB and CIFA. In real life this would be the Störschalter, right? Whatever. Let's see if we can switch it to the dark mode. No, we can't. Usually you can. Maybe you can do this only from one end of the train. I wanted to run one of those trains with a Vectron pulling IC cars, but I did not find them in the timetable mode. Maybe they are AI only. So, are we actually at Dresden Hauptbahnhof? We are, and now we are going to Großenhain. You mean the Flix train? No, I mean this this train that is sitting here on the platform next to us. It's IC cars pulled by a Vectron. Railpool Vectron, not the Flixtrain one.
Sehr geehrte Reisende, herzlich willkommen im Zug RB 31 nach Großenhain Cottbusser Bahnhof. Wir wünschen Ihnen eine angenehme Reise. Nächste Station Dresden-Friedrichstadt. Ausstieg in Fahrtrichtung links.
Okay, we didn't get 1000 hertz at the 60 repeater. That means we can release safely. And one of the oldest signaling bugs here in Dresden is we did not get a ZS3V at the exit signal, but now we're getting a repeater for a ZS3V. Well, maybe it's not a bug, but at any rate it is weird. ASR to you. And CD radar, busy, busy, busy. Yes, you missed all my penalty breaks because I'm trying out a new setup for my chat, and this is distracting me even more than before. Oh, and he turned on the HUD for 1 second. I did. But look, now we are getting yellow repeaters. And you think, oh no, I have to stop because of a yellow repeater. But then we're going to the left. And the repeaters are probably for that signal that was there on the straight line and not for the green one that is for us. So apparently those repeaters are connected with the wrong route. And going here towards Friedrichstadt. So that can give you a scare.
Nächste Station Dresden-Friedrichstadt. Ausstieg in Fahrtrichtung links.
Combination of LF7 and ZS3, both showing 8. One for the line speed and one for the signal speed that there might be. The low sun during sunrise always works not too well on the frame rate. You can see one of the gnomes that you can collect on this route. Quite looking forward to my Hanover shifts on Monday, Tuesday, not gonna lie, he says.
Herzlich willkommen im Zug RB 31 nach Großenhain Cottbusser Bahnhof. Wir wünschen Ihnen eine angenehme Reise. Nächste Station Dresden-Kotta. Ausstieg in Fahrtrichtung rechts.
So tell us about the Hanover shifts. What is so great about the Hanover shifts? Tempomat. Now both speeds are going to 90. We're only one train, aren't we? Yes.
Nächste Station Dresden-Kotta. Ausstieg in Fahrtrichtung rechts.
And Ronny says 4 hours towards Hanover, 2 hours to eat, 4 hours back, and he enjoys the long driving. Yeah, that sounds nice. That's going via Göttingen towards Hanover, or is that a different line? Like Munich, Erfurt, Göttingen, Hanover, or something like this? No. Munich, Nürnberg, Würzburg, Fulda, Kassel, Göttingen, Hanover. Ah, yeah. So Göttingen was right. Munich was right. But in between...
Sehr geehrte Reisende, herzlich willkommen im Zug RB 31 nach Großenhain, Cottbusser Bahnhof. Wir wünschen Ihnen eine angenehme Reise. Nächste Station Dresden-Kemnitz. Ausstieg in Fahrtrichtung links.
These times are really radar unfriendly. Oh, I'm sorry, CD Radar. I'm starting early so that I can do long streams. Or are you talking about Ronny's times?
Nächste Station Dresden-Kemnitz. Ausstieg in Fahrtrichtung links.
Al furro addicto ardente. Hi to you. Stream times, I just came home from work. Well, I'm very happy that you're here now. Hey, that you were going to Dresden-Kemnitz DLE station? Yeah, DLC station. That's funny, right? Dresden-Kemnitz sounds like the route Dresden-Kemnitz, but it's written with a K and over the CH. And all of a sudden, it is a little station next to the Elbe. Wait, didn't the original DB announcement say Regium rechts?
Sehr geehrte Reisende, herzlich willkommen im Zug RB 31 nach Großenhain, Cottbusser Bahnhof. Wir wünschen Ihnen eine angenehme Reise. Nächste Station Dresden-Stetzsch. Ausstieg in Fahrtrichtung rechts.
So that is another name for people to ponder about how to pronounce it, Dresden-Stetzsch, or how to spell it. Dresden-Stetzsch.
Nächste Station Dresden-Stetzsch. Ausstieg in Fahrtrichtung rechts.
Dresden-Stetzsch. And he says, I knew that the door had a lock on it. The radar hopes that the route has no lags and no bugs. Well, this hope is already only very frail, I'm afraid. And you can see my game lagging, even though I got rid of the second screen to reduce the lag. And Theodoros pointed out all the Trainsim classic routes to replicate what Ronny was doing. No way there is something wrong with the game that expensive. No, you're totally right. For that price you cannot have any bugs. Well, you get deluxe box with the deluxe edition.
RB 31 nach Großenhain, Cottbusser Bahnhof. Wir wünschen Ihnen
Yes.
eine angenehme
Special box in special edition.
Station Cossebaude. Ausstieg in Fahrtrichtung
And starter box in a starter edition. But they are free. Cossebaude, Ronny says, looks at MSFS in the main. And the main thread bug. Whoa, this car ran over the level crossing when the gates were closed.
Nächste Station Cossebaude. Ausstieg in Fahrtrichtung links.
Cossebaude. This name looks as if it wanted to be French at some point in time. CD Radar. So, Train Sim World 7 when? Well, this is not really a secret. Not that anyone knows about it. But there might probably be Train Sim World 7 in less than a year. At least announced. But before we get this, I wanted to see the CD radar. Well, then just call it Train Sim World 7. Count Rush Hour as Train Sim World 3. And Train Sim World 6 as Train Sim World 7. Maybe then all the DLCs for the Epic Game Store mystically appear. The car driver's girlfriend must have told him she's home alone if he accepted that risk. Maybe. So he thought it a great idea to break through the barriers. Niederwartha.
Herzlich willkommen im Zug
And
RB.
as unofficial Simmer ambassador, says ASRTO, I can claim that this doesn't happen on
Wir
Simrail.
wünschen Ihnen
True.
eine angenehme Reise. Nächste Station Niederwartha. Ausstieg in Fahrtrichtung rechts.
Well, I can tell you that at Dovetail Games they have a really high opinion on Simrail and what they achieved. For what it's worth. Ronny says, time flies, no man. I remember playing the Train Sim World Founders edition on my Xbox when I was in the first year of my apprenticeship. Yeah, that's true, time flies. Niederwartha, that means we are going 100. Cedar, I didn't buy early access and wanted to drive the train in real life. Yeah, you posted a picture. Did you get to drive it? Apparently, that's nothing special in this train driving community because nobody commented on it. Well, everyone was envious, most probably, CD Radar.
Station Niederwartha. Ausstieg in Fahrtrichtung rechts.
High opinion is not related to any kind of truck, ASRTU. Maybe DTG, the Steer Toros, can do the same if they stick to few routes and focus more on qualities. Well, they probably could do that when focusing on one country with one signaling system, one set of safety systems. And not releasing a new DLC for a couple of years. But I wonder how this pays your bills. So me, as someone who is neither financially involved with Simrail nor with Train Sim World, I'm just happy that we have two really great rail simulator games, at least. And I can definitely enjoy both approaches. So what do you mean with high opinion? I know that the main circuit breaker has opened.
Verehrte Reisende, herzlich willkommen im Zug RB 31 nach Großenhain,
Fixed.
Cottbusser Bahnhof. Wir wünschen
That was one of the train faults.
Reise. Nächste Station Raudebeul-Naundorf. Ausstieg.
Yeah, they're quite fond of it. Like it a lot. That is what I mean with high opinion. It's true. They appreciate what they have achieved in terms of multiplayer, in terms of dispatcher mode, especially what they achieved with the ATCS. Because of that stupid flashing yellow that I had to acknowledge, I'm now in the restricted 1000 Hertz. I cannot go beyond the 40 because we're going to Raudebeul-Naundorf. First time seeing ETCS in reality, albeit only in national signaling Moses race. So you've actually seen it in real life. That's great. And Ronny says ETCS is mad cool. And Theodore is looking at the pic you sent in Discord. So have you finally mastered Mirel? Yeah, you can see the Mirel display on. Now I can release finally. I released and actually the text message vanished from my Talent 2 display. That did not always happen. So what do I have to expect? 60 or 40 at the next signal? Not entirely sure, but we can go at least 60 until we get to the signal. And Ronny says, could just ignore it and take the Zwangsbremsung like a man. Yeah, here's the 60 that was announced. The C on the set is 2, telling us that we are going to Coswig. But before that happens, we have to stop at Raudebeul-Naundorf, what is a stopping point. Oh, maybe even a Bahnhof, because it has a switch. Between here and our junction to Coswig. And now the frame rate is in the toilet. That always makes the braking difficult if you're down to 3 or 4 frames per second. So, here we stay. ASRT is a well sim call for the first time ever, going at a possible 2 DLC year rate, as Lodge 2 has to release this year Metro Sim in March, and then there's the CD163 DLC, which is very much in late development stages. Well, I'm totally looking forward to it. I am ready to buy every SimRail DLC that they bring out in the market. So next stop is already Coswig. We had a 60 and go. Does the rule that the Weichenbereich ends at the stopping position also apply to HL signals that impose a 60 limit? Ronny, are you?
Wir wünschen Ihnen eine angenehme Reise. Nächste Station, Coswig bei Dresden. Ausstieg in Fahrtrichtung rechts.
It would actually make sense that the 60 is still valid because we're going into the junction here. And you're right, ASRTU. You are right, the DLCs are kinda cheap for SimRail, especially if you compare it with Trains and World DLCs. And Ronny says, Tiger, if I remember correctly, don't you live in like the middle of Germany, in like near Fulda? Sorry, I wasn't listening. What was the question? Well, actually, I'm living in northern Bavaria, what is not so far away from Fulda, but a bit more to the south. And the question was, does the rule apply for HL signals like this one that give you a 60 kilometers per hour limit, that the Weichenbereich ends at your regular stopping position, or is the 60 limit still valid after your stop until you reach the next signal? Especially in situations where there is no exit signal or no starter signal at the stopping point here.
Nächste Station, Coswig bei Dresden. Ausstieg in Fahrtrichtung rechts.
The Riesa time runs even slowly with few FPS. Suddenly we're in Christopher Nolan's movie here. True. And Ronny says I don't have HL signals, but I'd say so, yeah. Yeah, I would have thought as well. But in this situation here, would have actually made sense to keep the 60 up. Because otherwise we... Well, line speed was 60 on the diverging line anyway, so... Did probably not make a lot of difference. Here we always have to go next to the glass house. So we're actually picking up a bit of delay, especially because of all those restricted monitorings that we have to accept. Now it's 60 and go on the signals. We're allowed to start with 60, but we're still in the restricted 1000 Hertz.
Sehr geehrte Reisende, herzlich willkommen im Zug RB 31 nach Großenhain, Cottbusser Bahnhof. Wir wünschen Ihnen eine angenehme Reise. Nächste Station Weinböhla, Ausstieg in Fahrtrichtung rechts.
Weinböhla. Now we are back in the original Nahverkehr Dresden route. So, stream meeting in ICE driven by Ronny. Oh yeah, we should do this. We should do this. Just have to get his schedule. And then he can teach us how to uncouple the ICE units. Guess everyone is happy about this. Now I can release. And it is actually... And we can go to 60, and then... Because we not only get an LF7 with a 12, but also a ZS3 with a 12. As soon as we're past that sign, the double sign, we can accelerate to 120. Always supposing that limits imposed by HL signals can be modified by isolated ZS3 indicators. Party ICE. You tell the CDR will occupy the lounge behind the cab. I'm posting when trains I drive on my IG anyways. Not too hard to figure out. So, approaching Weinböhla.
Nächste Station Weinböhla, Ausstieg in Fahrtrichtung rechts.
DDR says, takeaways, do you prefer these white screens, or is it a bug that can't be switched to dark? I think it is a bug. I tried to switch them, and I managed to switch them on other Talent 2 sets, but on this one not. Maybe it only works on one end of the train. Here it doesn't. On the other side, it actually one click switches all of them. What kind of psychopath likes white screens? Yes. Let's check it out. This is the other end. No, I cannot switch them here either. Is this a 3-car unit? Maybe it does not work on the 3-car units. Only on the 4-car units. Ronny says someone brought me a 403 with them on a light mode. Seen it so few times I thought the MFD was bugged for a millisecond.
Sehr geehrte Reisende, herzlich willkommen.
So also in real life nobody uses the light mode.
Nach Großenhain, Cottbusser Bahnhof. Wir wünschen Ihnen eine angenehme Reise. Nächste Station, Niederau. Ausstieg.
Niederau, we should already be at Niederau. Look at our delay. Even without any Zwangsbremsungen. And Ronny says, to be honest, I use them, the light screens, on the 401 and the 402 sometimes, when it's really bright out and I'm having sunglasses on, I see. Then they can make sense. And see the highlights. That Panther was 2-car and brand new, didn't even have 100,000 kilometers. So that was a Panther actually that you drove. And Ronny says the City Radar had a 412 a year or two ago that had less than 10k on it. So was it so new or was it broken all the time so that it couldn't run further?
Sehr geehrte Reisende, herzlich willkommen im Zug RB 31 nach Großenhain, Cottbusser Bahnhof. Wir wünschen Ihnen eine angenehme Reise. Nächste Station.
And it was brand new. Cool. A brand new train. Priestewitz. Now we can actually go for a bit. Don't have to stop every now and then. This is making me crazy. I can't even focus on the chat with all those stops. Now I can lean back a bit. Thanks for the coffee. And that's why you drive ICs, says Ronny. Yes. I actually prefer driving the long runs with fewer stops. But we couldn't separate our two ICE train sets, so we had to resort to the Talent 2. And Ronny asks Tiger, are you up for a collab stream at some point, perhaps? Yeah, definitely. Totally. That would be nice to see the radar. Just let's figure out a format and what we are going to do. And I'm up for almost everything and anything. So beautiful autumn scenery when approaching Friedrichstadt. Sounds good to me, says Ronny. That is good, great. So people prepare for a collab stream with Ronny, the real life ICE train driver, and Tiger, the real life general smartass for everything. And then we can figure out what to do. It's starting to rain now. No, that was awesome, Cecilia. So here's me trying to make up for lost time, but I'm afraid we can't manage that. So since we are on wet rails now, probably we should start braking a bit earlier. Especially since we have to slow down to 60. and the handbrake has faulted and become applied. It will need realigning again. Alright, that is always a good idea. If that happens in a situation like this. Where is it anyway? Where is the Federspeicher here? Here it is. The fault has been fixed.
Nächste Station, Priestewitz. Ausstieg in Fahrtrichtung.
Wer bremst, verliert. Well, that was a train fault. Oh, and I'm invited next Friday to class 362, the iconic Skoda loco. Oh, CD Radar, you are rolling. That's a crazy fault, says ASR2, yeah. That was intense. Yeah, that is a crazy fault. The faults in general are quite crazy. On the Riviera line, you're constantly restarting your diesel engines. Parking brake applying while on the run. It's no fun. Is there any fault that doesn't consist of turn it off and on? There are some faults that consist of turn them on again. Like if a fuse gets blown, the doors you have to click before you can open and close them again. But most of them are turn them off and on again, yeah. So that's what I meant with those faults are a bit too arcadey for me. And a bit too simple to fix. It's not like on the Expert 101 where you really have to find the correct fuse and follow instructions depending on whether the train is running or not.
Großenhain, Cottbusser Bahnhof. Wir wünschen Ihnen eine angenehme Reise. Nächste Station. Großenhain, Cottbusser Bahnhof. Ausstieg in Fahrtrichtung rechts.
So Theodorus to Ronny. First I have to freeze my speed. We don't go too fast around the corner here. That's what the 60 was for. ICE trains do pass the local platform only stations doing 200 kilometers, right? Ah yeah, he asks Ronny. That was what we wanted to ask him the other day. The announcements sound good though. That is true. The announcements are really, really immersive. Sometimes when you are arriving with your train and are a bit early, then you can hear the announcement of the train that you just arrived with is due to arrive, but well, those are small things. And I see dynamic weather is still the same rain sim world. Seems like it, right? And the answer to the 200 hours question depends if there's LZB ETCS or not, but yes, maximum 200 if you pass station platform. But it is still extremely fast if for someone standing there. But it looks nice, the weather in the rain and the landscape in the rain, I think. Just have to be a bit careful because you have to slow down to 70. Not getting 1000 hertz here for the 70. Still getting a signal, I think, in between. Don't stand too close, then common sense, really. Still. You would be surprised that I don't do that. Stand too close to the platform edge. and I try not to pass on the narrow parts of the platform when there is a train going by. Oh, there was actually a limited a temporary speed restriction that I missed because I did not pay attention probably. I just saw the LF2 sign. Let's see if we find it. Here. That is an LF2 with A for Anfang, begin, start. Let's see if we can find the corresponding LF1 sign that should have announced it. Ah, maybe this was the sign that I saw and I thought this is the sign that I have to react to earlier. Is it like this? Was it a 70 restriction? Ah, yeah, true. That was the 70 restriction that I actually prepared for. I took it for an LF6 sign because it did not have any lamps. And without lamps it cannot be an LF1. There was wow, even F1 limits pit speed to 80. But okay. Well, don't stand too close to the platform. Ronny is right. Here is the end of the 70. In this context, they spawned in the correct sequence anyway. LF1, LF2, LF3. But the LF1 missing its lamps. And this is why we did not get 1000 hertz at the LF1. What we probably should have, but in-game explanation is no AWS magnets and no temporary PZB magnets. Oh, I'm actually too fast. I should have slowed down to 60. I was primed to 70 all the time, but the limit here is 60 when approaching Großenhain by... not Großenhain, by Großenhain Cottbusser Bahnhof.
Nächste Station, Großenhain, Cottbusser Bahnhof. Ausstieg in Fahrtrichtung rechts.
And Ace RTO is asking me whether DTG contacted me or whether I contacted DTG for becoming an ambassador. Well, truth be told, I contacted them, but not about becoming an ambassador, but after AJ finally made this beautiful website with all the videos put together in like an index, I sent them a link asking them whether they are interested in a collection of videos of that kind, because I wanted to promote my channel a bit and my website, maybe. And then they offered me to become an ambassador. And well, I thought, why not? As it was clear that I can still stream SimRail and other games and other train simulators, and that nobody is telling me what to say. And being friendly and fair is not something that comes unnatural to me. I thought this makes sense. So DB Netz doesn't have the budget to put PZB magnets on a train on temporary speed restrictions, as it seems. So it kind of just happened. Well, it was obviously a reaction to my videos. And from what I know, they kind of research and review and evaluate people who apply for ambassadors. And in my case, they got the videos first, and then it was them suggesting me to become an ambassador. And to get the game and DLC keys for free is definitely a perk. And to be able to talk to the guys, like when we visited Dovetail Games in Chatham a couple of weeks ago, It was definitely an interesting experience to talk to Jamie and Harry and JD and Matt and get their first-hand view about things. And I always have to say that they were really, really friendly to us. Took a lot of time for us. Talked very sensibly with us. So I do not regret becoming an ambassador. And I don't think that this hampers what I'm doing on this channel in any way. Azuma cap in the background, the CD radar. Yeah, that is still there. Well, I love the diesel Azuma on the Riviera line. Even though I cannot call it Azuma, obviously. You're almost finished on shunting duty today. Just 2 more jobs to go, although you've been asked to get out and check the second formation you'll be working on. We're doing some shunting on the deluxe V90 locomotive, Baureihe 294. And look at this machine. Unlock the control stand. Turn the signal light to headlight. That one? No, they don't want that one. Front? No, not the front. Right? The right one. Turn the signal light to headlight. Which one? That one? Yes. Set the indirect brake cutoff to normal. That is that one here. Set the handbrake to release. That will be that wheel. Specific signal sections protect this yard. Ensure that you request access to pass any red signals before proceeding. Actually, we should also request permission before we pass those signals here. And then the Weichenwärter should light those signals, in my opinion, here. But we will see. He doesn't. Proceed at restricted speed. It is still at red. Well, we may pass it. We have authority. Well, set the reverser to forward. Set the traction lock emergency brake release to release. That is that thingy here. That is quite unique to this locomotive. And apply some power. Why we did not light any light at the back of our locomotive, I don't know. It's raining a bit. Well, let's turn on the CFA and the PZB too. Don't know if that is strictly necessary here when doing yard duty. But at any rate, it's better for our points. Here you can see how much brake pressure there is, or how much pressure there is in the brake cylinders. So we have to stop in front of the cars. Don't bump into them. That's what I said, don't bump into them. Now we broke everything because I couldn't get the brakes on fast enough. Because our coupler is still raised. Bonks. Now it is down and we are coupled. And uncouple vehicles. And I guess we have to uncouple vehicles at the other end of the train. Good thing we have Hank. Right? Hank can go to the end of the train and uncouple. Was that the correct spot? Yes. Hank, you sit here. Set the power brake controller to release brake decrease power, so that is the neutral setting in the middle. Then we have to set the reverser to back. Since we changed direction, we have to contact the Weichenwärter again. Then we have to release the traction lock switch here. And now we're going. Here you can see the RPM for your diesel engine. Or you just drive by ear. And Hank returned for 6th time as a city radar. Yes, we would be nothing without Hank. Hank, SimWorld 6, Tigerways 3, Return of the Hank, says Ronny. And PCB, it looked off for a second. No, it's on. It's just, you can even see the alternate flashing between the 70 and the 85, where it's still starting program. But since we are not going faster than 25 while shunting, well, you can see even with the safety systems on, as soon as we're going backwards, we're only getting 35 points instead of 65. That is also an old thing that has been in the game forever. Well, more or less forever since the scoring system was introduced. Now you can see we have the RA12, I think we should call it in the east, at the, what is it, RE11A or whatever sign, the Warte signal. ASRTO, by the way, what's that gauge reading temperature? Here. This one is for the oil that is in the transmission, in the hydraulic transmission. Temperature. Getriebeöltemperatur. This is for the cooling fluid, Kühlmitteltemperatur. This is the pressure for the lubricant. Schmieröldruck. Whether the temperature increase is modeled, I don't know. So far I have like 10 minutes on this locomotive here. We would have to check it out. This red light is for the SIFA. Here is quite a gradient in the yard. that you have to take into account when shunting backwards with your cars. See, only 35 points even with the safety systems on. The next Wartesignal has the RA12 lit. The high signal is not for us. So did we go too fast beyond the 25? No. We will see. At any rate, we have to prepare to stop. Not do the same mistake again. This rev one is not for us, but the rev one that we are approaching definitely is. No, actually, this is one from behind. So this yellow W is the one for us. See if I didn't want to register. I wanted to stop here. To the middle, reverse it to forward, unlock, apply some power to get moving, not before asking the Weichenwärter when we change direction. And now we need Hank here at the front of our train. That he can pull the handbrake if need be. Actually, looks like temperature did not really change. Hank brake, yes. That's true. Instead of handbrake, it's Hank brake. So why did the train slow down so much now? I thought we were actually going in the gradient. And Theodorus, I got the feeling that ICE would test this for science. Whether the temperature... Well, actually the temperature cooled down a bit, didn't it? Now that we are not applying any power, but just rolling and coasting. Yeah, but you can even see it that the train is going downhill here. Hank has to make sure that all the switches are set correctly. So we have to couple, as it seems. And I think it's not a good idea for Hank to brake on his own. I think it definitely takes some feel to... Bonk! We did not reach it. So I think we have to release this again. So if we can't apply any power, we have to remove the traction lock here. Buffers are going through each other. That's always a good sign. Azart, I also do experiments. That's how I found out that Simrail's train heating system is a buggy, and if you open the MCB while it's on, you still have power, but not for X time, but for X total power, so you can draw 300 amperes on the motors for 5 seconds before it runs out. It's like train heating is a big battery capacitor. Well, that is interesting. Hank, uncouple the vehicles. Where do we have to uncouple? Closer to the train, as it seems. 25, that is between the tank cars and the Hyens, or the Habines. Speaking of your excellent website, yes, I know it's been a while. You should totally add people to the special people column. That is still a thing, yeah. I have to convince AJ to do this. Set the power brake controller in the middle. Traction lock, but before we do that, signaler. So if you wondered where the switches for the PCB are, they are here. There is like the main switch. Here is the selector for G and P brakes, and here is the selector for the mode, and here is the switch for CIFA. Yes, did someone say CIFA? I did, and CIFA said hello. I mean, I absolutely don't deserve to be not there. So you are there for a reason. I'm not quite sure whether you meant to say that you don't deserve to be there or that you deserve not to be there. You definitely are there for a reason. No, not number one. I mean the first one. Ah, you need to be the first one. Instead of AJ, you mean? Or are you actually the first one? You probably are. You absolutely don't deserve number one. Now I got you finally. I need a bigger screen than my phone for the chat, I'm afraid. Yeah, you definitely do. Set the power brake controller to Release. Hank, are you there? Hank, where are you? I know the Harbins are not so comfortable. Not as comfortable as the Zackens, but nevertheless. What's wrong? Why am I not applying any power? The fault again. No. Train is definitely not applying any power anymore. Engine is on. Okay, that is not good. A random fault that is not random. Well, that is at least one fault that cannot be fixed like the others can. What can we probably do? We can try to restart the engine. Maybe the air compressor went off and we don't have any Schmieröldruck anymore. Too heavy, but we are less heavy than we used to be. So... At any rate, we have Schmieröldruck again. And it works! I'm not entirely sure, but somehow this... We lost our compressor. And our Schmieröldruck, the lubricant, did not have any pressure anymore. And then we couldn't apply any power anymore. Oh, it's so nice and quiet where Hank is. His RTO compressor forgot to compress or something. Yeah, he did not provide any pressurized air anymore. Apparently. So maybe this flip can switch, or maybe it can be flipped if there is too much energy drawn or whatever. So Hank, tell us where to stop. How long is the train actually? 133 meters. The Wartesignal is open, but we probably have to stop at the red signal over there. They really have to stop on the switch. That is rather unusual. The switch can switch is one of the statements of all time, yeah. It can switch on its own. Specific signal sections protect this yard. Ensure that you request access to pass any red signals before proceeding. Yeah, what else would we have done? Now he says proceed at restricted speed. Why does he not turn on the RI-12 on that signal? It's just red, but it has the lamps around the red light. Why does he not use it? The Weichenwärter. How many seconds per frame was that? Yes. There were 3 seconds for one frame. So do I need the Befehl 40 button for that? Well, I guess better safe than sorry. Probably was not necessary. Takes really forever for those cars to drain their brakes. So are we supposed to couple up to this train? To this cut of cars? So Hank, tell us, how are we doing? No, it's alright. Just going a bit. We probably have to couple up. And we couple. Yeah, that's the coupling. Always funny. And Ronny says, finally decided on my sectors for today. Nürnberg, Brno, München in an A321 sounds like a nice little trip, so a safe flight for you then to the Czech Republic, and we uncouple the whole set. We uncouple. Hank is so fast. By the way, shouldn't there be an uncouple button for this thingy here somewhere in the loco? I have not found it yet. A report has just come in about a faulty train unable to depart from Leipzig. Finish what you're doing here and head over there immediately to assist. Time is on the hill start. Isn't it? Yeah, there is on the hill start. There is true uncouple. You're right. We'll try that next time. No, we try that now. If that actually works. Couple again. Coupled. Let's see if it works. Doesn't. It doesn't. Set the reverser to reverse. Of course we do that. Ask the Weichenwärter. Alright guys, but seriously, now that we are going out on the open track, we should have some lights, shouldn't we? And we should maybe get this coupler out of the way. We've got lights here, but we don't have lights at the front. Guys, this is not how I want to play this. I want to have lights there. Headlight. Headlight. And I want a Zugschluss on the other end. Now that we're out in the open. CD Raider says, now what lights? We have the sun. And Ronny says nothing regarding coupling works as it should. Oh, we probably went too fast anyway. Oh shit, we have to stop here. What was there to acknowledge? I did not even see what I should have acknowledged. The LF6 here? Or probably the LF6. Yes. He is little Mr. 1000 Hertz. We should have acknowledged the LF6. Even though the signal didn't say anything to us, we should have acknowledged the LF6 at least. Alright. That gives us the opportunity to go to long distance when we're actually going a long distance now. That's the problem with a short locomotive, right? You already get an objective failure if you are 6 meters too fast. Stop as indicate. Where are we supposed to go? In the opposite direction at any rate. Now we've got the lights the wrong way about. Now let's see if they actually want to change us the lights when we get there. Now we're getting out with our Zugschluss at front. That's also not so great. Maybe change the light formation again. Let's have just one light at the left and one light at the front, and this is off, and this is off, and this is off, and this is off. Game doesn't tell you to switch the lights on and then dock points for it. That can happen. Let's see what happens. At any rate, we know now where to go. And it is not giving us better points because we're going backwards probably. Alright, the KS2. This one we have to acknowledge. So much is for sure. Now we're going out on the LZB track even. Probably one more switch because we are on the wrong line. This time we made the stop at any rate. And now we're going to Leipzig. In the opposite direction as we do with that, yes. That means now I can do a proper light formation. Tail, tail, off, head, head, head. Alright, we're going that way. But maybe I want to be on the other side. But I cannot be on the other side. Because I'm stuck at my position. Honking does not help. I wanted to be on the other side. But I cannot leave this doomed position here anymore. Maybe I can do it if I switch that around. I cannot even decrouch anymore. Well, then we have to drive from this side. I wanted to see the signals better because they are a bit hidden like this. But what are we supposed to do? Can I change this while we are going? Probably not. So good. Now let's bounce. We are in an 80 limit here. We can im Streckengang can go 80. So 80 is actually our limit. Yeah, but we should have minded the start program, huh? Look at the speed clock, what it is doing. Okay, now let's mind the start program before we do that again. So not faster. It's actually quite explosive, this locomotive, if you don't have anything coupled to it. Juniper, hello, ein bisschen später, but how is the stream today? It's actually probably the stream with the most Zwangsbremsungen that I ever got. But so far it is interesting for me. The guys are really active in the chat. So let's see if I can release. I can. Look how this accelerates. This one accelerates this locomotive. Horn frozen. Add some wings and it will fly, says Juniper. Yes, true. This is how explosive this locomotive is. Now let's get to Leipzig and rescue something. But what we're only getting 35 points, maybe because of the rain. Okay, we have to slow down to 150. I think we can make this. Now we actually have to slow down to 60. Running in PZBM, we have to slow down to 70 anyway, but well, that's we can do. At least we could do it if I could turn around without getting frozen all the time. Rain is still on, you would not believe. KS2. .500 hertz is 45 now. Good thing that we're slowing down a bit. A dark distance signal for whatever reason. So are we getting a red main signal, or can we go to our stopping point? The next signal is a repeater that is as dark as the distance signal was. So it's actually duly repeating, slowing us down to 40, at least in the announcement. Now I've got a major stutter. Seeing this kind of log fly by without any load sometimes can be kind of surprising. Yeah, that's true. And here's a red signal with an SH1. So we can pass it with the override key. And this is probably the reason why the distance signal, including the repeaters, went dark, because it was a red signal that is actually possible to pass anyway. So unfortunately we cannot really see where we are going. Look what happened to me! My head is through the wall, through the roof. This is why I cannot move to the other position in the locomotive. I'm driving this thing like a submarine now. So I guess this locomotive in the background is what we have to rescue. It's rather someone rescue me from this position. So what object failure was that? Weren't we still approaching, or was I already beyond the countdown? I think the last thing that we did was starting off the yard, weren't we? So I probably don't want to do this again. Guys, let's call it a day. Stream says we have been working 2 hours 53. That can actually be true. It is 9 minutes past 9, Theodoros. Don't they usually have a helper loco that is nearer already on the station? Yeah, maybe they sent it away for whatever reason. But it is, says CD Radar. Yep. Well, that was surprising. Maybe I missed something. But even with objective failure, they let you play along, and they ended it here. Well, we will have to redo this, all the shunting, and then check out what is not working in this scenario, or what I did wrong. Never know. One of the two was probably the reason. Alright, this was the first run through Leipzig Dresden. What is a huge route with a lot of services, with a lot of possible main menu, with a lot of possible trains and services and different solutions. An expert 101 layer is supposed to get there, from what I have been told. At the moment you can only run the 101, and they is a bit buggy because it does not give you enough points even with the safety systems on when you're going into LZB, and sometimes it has this old fault where the loco is turned around and then it is picking up the LZB feed for the opposite direction. The other things that are layering into, I have not really tried them. There is one rail to a service with the 103. The Vectron only pulls freight services, and then we have the different freight locomotives for the freight services, I guess. Juniper, danke und bis später. Thank you guys for bearing with me. Tomorrow I will be back with the Morristown line and the American stuff. Yeah, keep it up and see you around. Bye bye.